Real pleasure to be here, and I'll just say now I am going to remain impartial. I will talk about a few of the main parties, including Labour. It's just that they've got the biggest manifesto and in much more to say than the other parties implies. So yeah, I'm Kate Palmer. I'm the Employment Services Director at Peninsula. I've been at Peninsula since I was a 21-year-old, 22 years ago. Had a little break in the middle where I went to the dark side and worked for a public sector, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, to be honest. So I came back to Peninsula. Nice, fast-paced, entrepreneurial, creative. Every day is different. Love it. So I oversee a team of 260 HR experts, solicitors, payroll consultants, graduates, people that have been HR directors, people that are coming into the outset of the career, and we deliver employment law and health and safety advice to thousands of businesses across the UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and I think that's everywhere. So I'm HR purist, but my job has evolved into anything, not just HR, everything business related really. And it's really great to be here, so thank you. For any of you that are HR professionals, my goodness me, what a year to date this has been in terms of pace of change, adaptation, complexity, challenges for business, because it's honestly, I've never known change like it. 10 employment law changes in April alone, and I'll come on to some of them to kick off before I go into some of the high level points of each manifesto. COVID, I think, has changed the world of HR dramatically. I don't believe any HR leaders are process driven anymore. If they are, they're not going to succeed at the job. It's complex. It's a lot about the psychological contract, understanding your staff, a lot of emotional resilience. That phrase is probably too overused, but to be in HR, you've got to be very emotionally resilient now. Just about Peninsula, and a quick overview. Some of you may know us, some of you may not, but we've been around for 40 years. We celebrated our 40th year last year. We're a privately owned business. We were born and bred in Salford, and we're now a global firm. We support over 75,000 businesses worldwide, and we work with primarily SMEs, but a lot of medium-sized businesses, and we do have a corporate team as well. We service the likes of the Co-op and Summers. I don't know why I chose Ann Summers, but there you go, Ann Summers. That shouldn't stick in my mind. And we deliver 24/7, 365 advice, day in, day out. Even Christmas Day, we've got an advisor on shift. So that's what we're about. We're all about what do you want to achieve as a business, and we'll help you get to where you want to be. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the main changes in 2024 so far. Most of these came into fruition in April, a lot on the 6th of April, so I'll give you some headlines. The first, probably most significant one, was a new piece of time off was legislated for and came into fruition on the 6th of April this year, carers leave. So it's a right for unpaid time off of 1 week in every 12-month rolling period for someone that has caring responsibilities for an individual with a long-term care need. There's lots of little definitions within what it is. Where do I think this is going? You will see in the manifestos when we come onto it, there's a lot of emphasis on family-friendly rights, work-life balance, and caring, certainly in the Liberal Democrats manifesto. So this is just one small step towards this. I speak to clients that were quite against this being brought in because they thought it was maybe a little frivolous. Whatever your opinion is, obviously that's not my opinion necessarily, but the right to the time off can be for anything. It can be taking someone to the garden centre for a brew, to go and draw the pension. The time off can be something, what some people perceive as insignificant as that, but what carers and those being cared for may perceive as really significant, extremely significant. So that came into fruition on the 6th of April. What also came into fruition around the same time is flexible working. I am sure many of you work flexibly, some of you may not, I don't know. It's dependent on the business, the context, what the industry needs. But a new right came into flexible working in April, and that was around the right to request flexible working. Pre-April, you could make one request every 12 months. Now you can make two. You can also enforce and work with your business to ensure that they consult with you on any refusal. You have to give one of the 8 statutory reasons to refuse a request for flexible working, and you can see where this is going it's all around work-life balance and what a lot of the manifestos really lean towards. And most parties, bar Reform and Conservative, have talked, well, that obviously that eliminates two of them, but have talked about the thrust towards flexible working. I'll not bore you with the next one too much, but does anyone in the room know the Harper Trust case? No, well, I'll definitely not bore you with this too much. There was a very peculiar decision that came out in terms of legislation, and it arose from a case called the Harper Trust case. And what that said was if you worked less than 52 weeks of the year, so a teacher, for example, works 39 generally term time of 52 weeks, you would still get 5.6 working weeks annual leave throughout the course of your year. It's peculiar, it makes no sense. Why should you work 39 weeks and get the same amount of annual leave as a 52-week worker? So that got reversed. Is it rolled up holiday pay if you've got casual staff, if you've got workers who work really flexible hours, weird working different working patterns than your standard, you can now use a calculation, what's defined as rolled up holiday pay, which you calculate as 12.07% of their salary. If you want to talk about that after, grab me. 0 hours contracts are very likely to get banned under a Labour government. My sister is the HR manager at the Lowry Theatre. She said they will really struggle to operate without 0 hours contract. They are perceived by many as exploitative, and many businesses do exploit them, many businesses don't. So watch this space if Labour come into power, what will happen around 0 hours contracts and the nature of such. Paternity leave, now, it's a fact, not all, there is obviously more women take maternity leave, obviously, than more men take paternity leave. You don't get a big take-up of it, but that changed this year as well. So paternity leave, you now get 2 weeks paternity leave per year, you can break them up and you can take it within a year of the baby's birth, same for adoption. Last one, pregnancy and redundancy. So protection for employees on maternity got extended on the 6th of April. So if an employee tells you they're pregnant, from the minute they tell you to 18 months after they return from maternity leave, if you are making them redundant, they have to get first dibs on any suitable alternative role that you're offering. You can understand the rationale behind that, protecting women, protecting children, but that has been extended massively. So if any of you are going through a redundancy process and you have an individual who is on maternity or 18 months from the birth, you really need to be speaking with ourselves or considering that, because you've got to give them a suitable alternative first. And last but not least, national minimum wage. Rates increased and incorporated 21 and 22-year-olds into the national living wage in April. £11.44 an hour that now is. So, loads going on. Not only that, all the statutory rates increased in April, so if you've got a business, make sure you're compliant with the statutory rates. £184 and 3 pence for SNP, SSP, statutory maternity, statutory paternity, £116 and 75 pence for statutory sick pay. That is very likely to go up again under a Labour government. So there's just a bit of a whistle-stop tour, some headlines from April. There's been so much going on. I speak to businesses who don't even know flexible working has changed, and they're going through a flexible working process and getting it wrong. Not only do you have a potential constructive dismissal claim there, where an employee will say, you have forced me to resign because of the way you have treated me, but if they have 2 years service, but likewise you've got a potential sex discrimination claim as well. So you need to be getting these things right. Which brings me to this time next week. I'm sure you know, because you can't get away from the damn thing, that there is an election going on a week today. So come Friday the 5th, what is going to happen, dependent on what goes on in those polling stations. So I could stand here and talk to you for about 4 hours. I'm not going to do that, I've got 15 minutes max. I've not ordered these in any bias. I know Andy Burnham's in this building apparently, but I've not put Labour first because he's in the building. We're talking Labour, day one right to disconnect in the first instance. So, Labour have called their manifesto a new deal for working people. Plan to make work pay is their line, is that what they're calling their manifesto. They have said within 100 days of coming into power, they will legislate for all these things that I'm going to talk about now. That's not to say you will have to be compliant with them, but they will legislate, put them through Parliament and set dates in which they'll come into fruition. So think about this because it's a lot. The main change in employment law under a Labour government is the removal of a 2-year unfair dismissal time frame. So anyone in business, if you're do a bit of an Alan Sugar now and then, which sometimes you've got to do, you're fired 15 minutes after they've walked in the business because they've been late and they've not got the right dress attire on, they can claim unfair dismissal, potentially. Now this is what they've said. Now what they've also said is they're going to put some caveats around probationary periods. What that's going to look like, we are yet to know. Obviously it's a lot of headlines at the minute, isn't it? A lot of holistic, I was going to say propaganda, and that's the wrong word to use, but a lot of holistic phrases and trying to get your vote. So the facts will all have to be derived from this, but that will be a massive change. The amount of clients that ring us and go, the short service, can I dismiss them on the spot? And we check the risk and we assess if there's any discrimination issues, and we go, well actually if that's what you need to do for your business, then yeah, we'll help you do that, right? All the letters, etc. It will get a lot more complicated. So that's one of the biggest changes. Right to disconnect. I think they have this in Ireland now. I'm looking at you, because you're from Dublin. Right to disconnect, again, moving towards that work-life balance piece. I will really struggle with this if this comes into play. I send lots of emails at weird times. I've got children, and I have to put them to bed and then do a bit of work. I might wrap things up on a Sunday night while my husband's watching Liverpool. You know, all these, I do it, and there'll be a lot of us in this room that do the exact same thing. But what Labour have said is they're going to bring a right to disconnect into law, where, and I quote, will give the opportunity for employers and employees to work together on policies or contractual terms that benefit both parties. To me, that sounds quite idealistic. You know, if you say to an employer, I'm going to email you on a Sunday, some will say yeah, a lot will say I don't want you to email me on Sunday. So coming together to create some kind of agreement around that, to negotiate contractual provisions of when you can and cannot contact them, I think in practice is going to be quite difficult. But watch this space, we might get some real clear guidance on what those rules look like. But all this is going to impact your documentation, your handbook, your contracts. I don't know the answer to this, but I thought, well, if you come to some agreement about I can email you on a Sunday, is the employer going to expect recompense for that? Is it working time? I don't know, quite frankly. But we'll soon see if it comes into play. But I believe this is in play in Ireland, and I think Spain do it, or maybe Sweden. There are various countries that have adopted this already, and there's a move towards such. Labour have got the biggest manifesto by far, and you'll see that as I go through the next few parties. But to name but a few, and honestly I've got a list of about 5 pages of promises, but to name but a few: remove national minimum wage age groups, so regardless of your age you'll get the same pay. Increase sick pay. They're going to require businesses to put trade union membership into all contracts, so individuals know how to join a union. They're going to give self-employed people a right to a written contract. I've not got this on my list here, but they've talked about eliminating worker and employee status and mutating it into one, so workers, casuals get more rights. They're going to make flexible working default from day one. I don't actually know that there's no detail around that. You can request flexible working from day one now, but there's going to be more statute built around that. What that may be, what that may look like, I don't know. It may be you have to advertise what flexibility you have in any recruitment exercise. They're going to make menopause action plans compulsory for larger businesses. And look, the list goes on and on, quite frankly. There is a flavour clearly towards, well, not a flavour, a strong thrust towards employee rights. They're ahead in the polls. I ain't no political commentator, but it looks like they're getting in. So if this is the party that gets in, HR are going to be busy, you know, I would say, because this will impact all your contracts, all your policies. You're going to have to train your leaders on how to deal with a flexible working process. There will be a lot to do, but at least we won't be being made redundant, which is one thing. Lib Dems, you will have seen feels quite a lighter campaign, maybe. Kind of fun things going on when you see it on the media, going down water slides in wetsuits, but obviously there's a serious element to what they're doing. A lot of what the Lib Dems are talking about is aimed at caring responsibilities. There are currently 9 protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010. Things like age, sex, sexual orientation, there's 9. There hasn't been one added for 20 years. The Lib Dems have said they're going to add 2 more protected characteristics. They're going to add caring as a protected characteristic, if you care for another individual. And they're going to add, and I think it's a great what they're saying, but it's very specific, care experience. And I had to check what this meant, and it means if you have been in care throughout your childhood, you will be protected by equality laws. Obviously, when you are protected by equality laws, if you breach them, you are discriminating against someone, and you are legally obliged to put reasonable adjustments in for any of those that are covered by the Equality Act. Well, there hasn't been one for 20 years. They've talked about in the past few years women in caste. Menopause nearly came in as a protected characteristic last year off the top of my head, but that got scrapped. It wasn't classed as a standalone protected characteristic, but watch this space. They've also said they're going to lower the bar for flexible working, in that there'll still be a window to refuse flexible working, but the effort or the hurdles that the employee has to get through in order to get that approved will be lesser. And they've also said that there's going to be a specific right for disabled people to work from home unless there's a good reason not to. Now, don't forget, in employment law, disabled covers a broad categorisation of things. So a disability in employment law is something that substantially impacts your everyday life. So it's broad, it's wide. So there we go. Some of the other things that they've said they're going to do: increase paternity, maternity, make them available to self-employed, and kinship carers, again, that carers thrust. They're going to require publication of parental leave and pay policies, more rights for 0 hours staff to move to stable contracts, again like Labour. I didn't cover that off, but Labour have said they'll ban them if they are exploitative, whatever that means in terms of the definition. And they're going to increase the minimum wage for workers in the care sector, and also 0 hours staff. So a couple more to do, but you'll see by the lesser information that the pledges and the manifestos are a lot less. Conservatives' main thing, and you may have seen the headline in the paper, get a grip, get a job, was the headline. It was obviously quite controversial. It caused a bit of an uproar. It got attention. It did the job. Everyone sat up and listened. But what does that mean in practice? It means they are going to overhaul the current fit note system to ensure people are not signed off sick by default. And I'm the fairest person. I'm sure there's lots of fair people in the room. I'm very fair, but I see fit notes coming in left, right, and centre for things that I don't think people should be signed off sick for. So I think something is needed around this. It will be interesting to see how it evolves and what it actually looks like. We've talked about it being a triage service, so healthcare professionals that you have to go to specifically, have a consultation with, talk about the work you do, essentially like an occupational health referral, but in the moment. And it will be a lot harder. They've not said that word, but of course it will be a lot harder to get signed off sick, get a fit note. And it's all about growth in their view, which you can understand. So there's going to be an assessment at the request to get signed off sick. They are explicitly going to say that protected characteristic under the Equality Act of sex means the biological sex, means one's biological sex. So again, that will be quite controversial, I imagine, but that's what they've said. Wider issues, they have said they're going to limit the number of overseas workers coming into the UK, and they're going to increase the national living wage to £13 per hour by 2029. Now it's already on £11.44, so 5 years to increase to £13 is a massive jump, but that's what we said. And last but not least, I might as well walk out really, because reformers said they're going to scrap all employment law. I don't know the rationale for that, or, you know, but it's scrapping employment law, it's scrapping the Equality Act. I don't know what he's replacing it with, but he's scrapping it. So yeah, really vague, really vague. He's going to replace the Equality Act, not him, reform, not Nigel Farage himself. He's going to replace the Equality Act 2010. Not clear what he's going to replace it with, but that is a piece of law that is very prominent in the world of work. Obviously, it protects one from being discriminated against. It's going to make it easier to hire and fire. I don't know if that's good for a recruitment company, maybe. Lots of recruitment to do, so that businesses can grow. And he's going to, in his words, in Nigel Farage's words, scrap thousands of laws that they say hold back British business and damage productivity, including employment law. And they're also going to make St George's Day and St David's Day a public holiday, so that's good. On a serious note, all these things impact your contracts, you know, impact your policies, any of these changes. He's also said he's going to rescind EU-driven law. So what types of things are EU-driven law? Working time regulations, for example. What we get our annual leave through. So he's going to, I'm not sure, there's no commitment to what it would be replaced by, but anything derived from the EU, following Brexit, there was talk of rescinding a lot of EU legislation. It's not happened. None of it's happened in employment law, in the world of employment law, but Reform said they're going to do it. So there's a lot going on, keeping us really busy. We are doing so much for the election, it's consuming my thinking at the minute, to be honest. We're ready on Friday next week to do a dissection of what's going, what the results are. You know, could it be a hung parliament? Again, I'm no politician, but I could be. If it is, who would probably Labour go into bed with in terms of a hung parliament? I don't know. Maybe SNP, don't know, or DUP. But time will tell, and it's not that far ahead. Peninsula are doing loads. Please, we've got something called Peninsula Brainbox. If you want to check out any of them questions, Google Peninsula Brainbox, loads of answers on there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll always help you where I can. But we're ahead of the curve with everything employment law related that relates to next Thursday. So that's me. Thank you very much. I know there's Q&A, so anything you want to